Hello Internet, I'm Stephanie back with another video. Today I'm going to be talking more about projections, and I've given myself a wonderful example for any of you who may have watched my previous videos where I struggle with my wonderful whiteboard and backwards writing. So this seems very obvious to me now, and probably did to everyone else, that I actually did not need to write backwards in order for the recording to show the words the way that I intended. So as I'm recording this right now and I hold up the whiteboard, I do still see all of the words mirrored back to me, right? And because I've never made videos before, and because I had told myself no matter what happens, I'm not going to make excuses, I'm not going to give up, I'm not going to chicken out, right? So when I saw myself mirrored, I decided to just fix it by writing backwards, which felt like a clever way to just move on from that moment and la-di-da, right? Now, again, because I had decided that I didn't want to edit and I didn't want to fall into the trap of watching myself and judging myself and chickening out on the things that I felt like I wanted to say, or posting or sharing them because of how I perceived myself, I decided not to re-watch my videos until I had finished recording a segment of them, 4 of them it was. So it wasn't until I re-watched them much later that I realized, which of course now seems obvious, the camera was going to re-mirror the video back, so everything that I wrote actually did show up properly, which means when I had fixed it by writing backwards, I actually unfixed it on the video and had to then mirror the video so that it would show up the way that I had seen it, so that the things that I were saying would make sense. Now, obviously, this sounds very convoluted and silly, and it is, and I love it because it's given me a perfect example to talk a little bit more about projections, right? So we talked about how the way we perceive other people, the way we perceive situations, the way we make choices, all of these things can be affected, changed, or skewed based on the perspective that we bring to the world, which could be built up over our lifetime, past experiences, patterns of feedback, and so on, that cause us to maybe overlook the fact that other people can never be inside our head. They can never be inside our mind, right? You're always kind of working with a little bit of translation, no matter how clearly you're speaking, no matter how clearly I feel like I'm explaining myself. It's only a shadow of what my thoughts are telling me, and whoever might watch this video is going to be perceiving it through the lens of, do they find my hairstyle distracting? Is the backlighting annoying? Before they even get to hearing the words that I'm saying, do they understand the words? Am I pronunciating my words clearly, let alone do you understand the words that I'm saying? And what connotations do you have for those words, right? These are all sort of hidden filters, you could say, or hidden mirrors, or they comprise kind of this like smoke and mirror fog kind of effect. So when we're trying to communicate with people, or when we're trying to receive advice from people, or when we're trying to receive advice from a tarot card or a tarot reader, you have to account for the fact that there's always going to be a little bit of that lost in translation. So by trying to fix the way that people see you, sometimes you end up obscuring your view of your own self, if that makes sense. So by trying to write backwards to make it easier, I actually ended up with a video where the writing was all backwards. Now, the thing about projections is that we don't always recognize that they're happening. And even when we see something, like for example, again, I'm seeing my own writing backwards, right? The distracting aspect of that clouds out logical thinking, right? So when I'm seeing my writing backwards, I'm not thinking to myself, oh, obviously the camera, is going to fix this later, right? I'm not thinking, oh, well, it must be okay because there's no way that every other person in the world who's ever tried to write something on camera they haven't had to learn to write backwards just to make that video work, or else people would be talking about this, right? Someone who understands technology should have fixed this problem by now if this was really a problem, right? So the logical reasoning to prove to yourself that what you're seeing isn't really true is clouded by the vision of what you're actually seeing. So that works the same way when we're communicating with other people. You know, when we're communicating, whether it's beyond the veil, as people call it, or just even face to face with another person. You have to account for the difference in perspective. Now, a really good example of this as well, which I'd like to talk about, there's a Tom Holland movie. I forget the name of it. But basically it's men, their thoughts are audible to other people. Not only can you hear their thoughts, but you can actually see there's like a cloud bubble above them, and it illustrates the thoughts that they're having. This only happens to men and not for women. So kind of a fun little thing you could play on that aspect, but I'm just going to gloss over it. The point is, when you realize that your thoughts are on display, this can be shocking. This can be, embarrassing, challenging in many ways. But some of the characters had actually used that recognition to be able to deliberately project thoughts that they wanted to be on display. So, at one point, Tom Holland's character, he thinks about this, big monstrous like beast thing, and it poofs into the thought cloud above him, and someone else sees that, and it looks so real that they're actually scared, and it's literally just the thought that's in his head. There's no real danger, but it feels real. And this is the other thing about projections that make it so tricky and so dangerous, is because we can't avoid the fact that we project our thoughts and our ideas outward. We can try to recognize this, and we can try to compensate for it, and we can try to modify what our thought projections are to make our life more pleasant, to make our relationships easier. So for example, let's say that I have a deep fear of abandonment. We talked about this one earlier. I'm always scared, let's say, that my partner is going to leave me because he no longer loves me. Now, it might be true that he doesn't love me anymore, and it might not be true. But if I'm able to reflect on my own self, if I'm able to catch the projection and realize that what's really happening is my fear of abandonment is, making an image appear in front of me, which may have nothing to do with him as well. He's almost the blank canvas that my negative thoughts are being splattered upon. And if I don't realize that it's a projection, I'm going to end up sabotaging that relationship, or, blaming him for things when really it's an aspect of myself. So if I have a fear of rejection and abandonment, I'm going to see that everywhere. I'm going to pick up on, yes, there might be real changes in his behavior. Maybe sometimes he does come off with a tone, or, we have a disagreement or whatever it is. But I'm going to read into that, because overlaid onto whatever he's doing, I have this filter: fear of rejection, fear of abandonment. So I'm going to pick up on things that maybe he didn't mean anything by it, but to me, a little monster appears in that spot and says, see, you see, this is what I was talking about. This is what I was warning you about, right? And the system, if we can call it a system, that our mind does this, right? That we recognize patterns, and that we sort of go through like a highlight reel of similar moments to try to understand what people are saying, what people mean, what their tone means, what the environment is showing to us, and so on. The system itself of pattern recognition and of memory projection or thought projection is not bad in itself. It's a way for us to understand ourselves. So if we're constantly seeing, the monster under the bed, that's a clue to us that there's a monster going on up here that is always being projected outward. And so this is why, again, back to the movie, some of the characters were able to recognize that, and they were able to either weaponize for the bad guy or use it as a tool for self-defense or protection. They were able to consciously choose which thoughts they focused on, and that was able to control the thought that other people heard happening in their head, as well as the image that other people saw being projected out from them. So this is a vast oversimplification of a process that, maybe some people might take years in therapy to really truly understand the root causes of their projection and to be able to recognize them. So I'm not trying to minimize by any means the process, and I know that this has taken me years as well to recognize some of the patterns, and I wouldn't even pretend that I have recognized all of them by now. Especially having a child, I found they are a great mirror, and they will show you exactly where you need to look at your own self, because the way that you react to them being, this innocent child just trying to understand why they're alive and what this means for them, right? And it's a constant healing journey, and it's a constant self-discovery journey, I will say, because healing implies that there's something wrong with you, there's something, ill with you, and that's not necessarily the case. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't talk to your doctor or talk to your therapist, but it's not because there's something wrong with you. It's because you want to better understand yourself, to better accommodate yourself, to have more compassion for yourself, and to be able to catch yourself, to notice, I mean by that, right? To observe yourself when you are acting on something that's really happening in front of you externally, versus when you are projecting something from your own thoughts or fears or whatever it may be. So when you are changing the way that you are making decisions, and you're starting to notice the way that you feel about the choices you're making, this is also going to lead you to, conversely or adversely, to notice when you don't feel good about something, or when a thought, an intrusive thought is constantly weighing on you, or you're going to start to notice these patterns in your behavior, your own behavior, your relationships with other people, and with the things, like your job or the other things that you're expected to do in your life. And then that can lead to a little bit more of a sense of overwhelm. It's like when you walk into a really cluttered room and you think, where do I even start to clean this up, right? So noticing what your thoughts are, and noticing what distracts you, and noticing where you might be bringing your own self and projecting it outward, this can help in so many ways, because it can clarify for you, what patterns of belief in your own life and your own mind are changing the way that you see yourself and the way that you see the world. So, for example, if you have always been disappointed in relationships, people are always cheating on you or leaving you, or, just when you say you love them, that's when they leave. It's not illogical to think that your mind has now formed this as a pattern and has built this in as almost like a fear, like, okay, watch out, we're getting close to that point where every other time in the past this thing has happened, right? That warning system itself is not the problem, okay? Recognizing that you are prone to jump to that conclusion, okay, this is the point where this thing fails. What you've done, though, in that instance, is you haven't given that situation a chance to tell you whether it was going to fail or not, right? And I'm not saying that you need to push everything into the bitter end either, because, you have to go with what feels right for you. But just being aware that you might be expecting failure allows you to decide whether you push on with something or not, and to weigh whether the expectation itself might be causing you to see failure where failure might not really be what it is. Another common example for this one, people talk about the yellow car, right? How many yellow cars have you seen today? I have no idea. But if you're looking for yellow cars, you're suddenly going to start spotting them more and more. And this happens with positive thoughts and with negative thoughts. So if you're always expecting failures, if you're always, critical, and you're always expecting judgments and these types of things, you're going to perceive those things because they're what you're looking for. But if you're looking for the best case scenario, and if you're looking for the one that proves you wrong maybe, or if you're looking for what can go right today instead of what can always disappoint me, right? If you change the things that you're looking for, you will start to notice those things more and more. And this is a way that you can shift working from your fear-based projections and switch over to seeing and recognizing more beauty, more peace, more love, and more happiness in your life. People talk about having gratitude, and it sounds really cliche and basic, but this is basically what that is, right? Is rather than saying, oh, my job, I have to go to this job, I hate this job, right? You could say, I'm really grateful that I'm employed. I'm really grateful that I have the stability of this job. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to expand my skills or to make new friends, let's say. Or, maybe I really do hate everything about this job, but I'm still grateful for it because it provides, the money that I need to support myself or my family. And once you start purposefully looking for something to be thankful for in a situation where you really don't feel thankful, right? You can teach yourself to focus on different things. Now, what I'm not saying is to make up things that aren't true to trick yourself into feeling happy if you are not happy, right? If you're in an abusive relationship, it's not about saying, but I'm choosing to believe that this person truly loves me, and every time they do X, Y, and Z to me, it's really a sign of love. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is if you're in a challenging situation, you can choose what you focus on, right? And in some cases, when you're in a tough relationship, it's a chance for you to look at your own self, to look at what are my expectations? Is this person treating me in a way that meets my expectations? Are my expectations high enough, right? Am I giving myself enough respect if this is the behavior that I'm accepting back from another person? And you can even look at yourself and say, are my expectations too high? Maybe I'm hypercritical. Maybe I expect far too much. Maybe I don't give this person, enough credit for the work that they do or the love that they try to show me, right? And this is not specific advice. This is just, again, different ways to look at a situation to determine whether what you are perceiving from them is really even coming from them, or if it's coming from some type of, obscured mirror or fog or projection that is coming from your own self. In most cases, I would say it's probably some of both, right? Because again, they are in the same position that you are, that I am, which is whatever's going on in their head, they can only explain it in the words they have. Sometimes the words don't come out the way that we want them to, right? Sometimes you say something and it feels backwards to what you were really trying to express, right? So, I don't know if that's a good place to leave it, but it's just something to think about. Again, is, everything that you put out into the world is coming from yourself. Yes, it's coming through the lens of your own understanding. And if you want to be better understood, if you want to better understand yourself, if you want to express yourself more clearly, right? It's about noticing those times when especially fears are jumping up and creating these projections, and being able to kind of choose not to focus on the fear, because again, the fears are real. It's true to think that someone who you really love might eventually leave you. So that's not an irrational fear, right? It's just, are you going to let that fear be the determining factor in how you move in that relationship, right? Or how you make your choices? Or are you going to choose to focus on and be motivated on a positive emotion, which could be, again, excitement, happiness, optimism, whatever. And by choosing to focus your thoughts in a thought stream that makes you feel more positive, you will over time teach your brain to notice these things first, and it will become easier to see the bright side before you see the negative side. Now, it's not to say that we should never see the negative side, right? Because they're two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. And being able to recognize both is going to help you to better navigate your life. It's just, do you make a decision based on fear of missing out, fear of loss, fear of rejection, abandonment, fear of failure? Or are you going to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to make this decision based on what if it works out? What if it goes better than I thought? What if this person really cares for me more than they can express? What if I care for myself? What if I care for them? What if this actually ends in a happy ending, right? And so sorting through your projections, noticing when you are bringing something into a relationship or a dynamic that isn't actually there when it's coming from your own self, and figuring out where, if it's coming from my own self, why? Is this a pattern? Am I seeing signs of this pattern again? Or is this just that kind of like a Jack in the Box? I'm getting like a pop-up, like, boo, it's that fear again, boo, it's me again, right? And being able to decide if it's safe to stuff that guy back down in the box, right? Chuck him in the corner and make a different choice and see if the outcome might be different. And the more you experiment with this type of thing, again, in small decisions, I'm not talking high stakes, I'm not talking, obvious toxic situations or anything like that, but being able to tell when the image that you're looking at, again, I'm going back to this mirror, right? When I look at this right now, again, it's still written backwards, but I'm choosing to ignore that because now I understand that this is just something that I'm seeing that isn't really true for how this situation is going to end. By the time I stop recording and play back the video, it will have resolved itself, right? And once you can sort of clear up that aspect of or recognize, is this coming from me or is this not? Is this I don't want to say in my imagination, because all of those things sound really patronizing, and it's not about making up problems for yourself. That's not what it is, right? Your brain is not trying to hurt you, right? It's trying to protect you. It's just, do we need protecting right now? Do we need protecting from this? Is this an active threat to me, right? Being able to decide those things can reduce the stress that you feel around making choices, and it can make it easier to communicate with other people once you have that confidence in yourself to say, you know what, I know what I'm saying. I've accounted for my own projections. I've considered my own patterns of thinking or my own limiting beliefs, and I still feel good about this, or I still feel a certain way about this. It just helps you to, again, be more thorough. And the more you can recognize the mirror or the projection in front of you, the more you can kind of choose to ignore it if you feel like it's not being helpful to you in that time. And the more you say, you know what, we're not in danger right now, we can put down this fear response, the less you're actually going to actively feel fear, because your brain and your mind will start to learn that not every decision is life or death. Not every moment is make or break. Not everything is going to potentially end in disaster, right? And so on that topic, actually, my next video is going to be talking about proof, confirmation, and synchronicity. Kind of sound interchangeable. I don't think they really are. And exploring how when we are making decisions, especially, again, if we are using these tarot cards or advice from other people, if we're allowing outside opinions or factors to have an effect on how we make decisions, the feedback that we're looking for from those decisions, and how those two things kind of interact, right? So yeah, I'm going to leave that here for now. I hope that makes sense. I no longer write backwards. I choose to ignore that, and I choose to press on and continue making these videos. So thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day.